welcome to What's Really Real. Today's guests, we have Greek philosopher Plato, French philosopher Rene Descartes, Morpheus, Neo, and scientist Kevin Warwick. My first guest today is Plato. Woo! Welcome, Plato. Hi. So, what is your main goal?
My main goal is to draw distinctions between the objects of the senses and perceptions, which are mere appearances, and the objects of the mind and the rational part of the soul, which are true reality, the forms.
How do you plan on achieving this goal?
I plan on using reason to find true knowledge.
And why would you use reason?
I have followed in the footsteps of my master Socrates, which was a rational thinker, and he taught us to think for ourselves and to pull out knowledge that was already within us.
So you're saying that your position on knowledge is that you come to true knowledge from reason alone?
Yes, I believe that the rational part of the soul is reason, and that we obtain knowledge through this. Therefore, knowledge is virtue, and ignorance is vice.
So, would you consider yourself a rationalist?
Yes, I would, because all knowledge does not originate from experience, but instead from reason.
So, one of your great dialogues was the allegory of the cave. Do you care to explain to the viewers what that was about?
Sure. Well, the allegory of the cave involved prisoners that were chained to only see before them. They had a fire behind them that made shadows on the walls. The prisoners believed that these shadows were the truth. One prisoner was released, and then he saw that the shadows were just an illusion. He was taken outside of the cave. There he could experience real objects. Once enlightened by the real world, he went back to the other prisoners, and they didn't believe him, and instead they mocked him for his ideas.
So, what is the moral of that story?
Well, this dialogue is saying that just as perception requires our eyes, and our eyes require an object to focus upon, and the sun or another source of light for illumination of that object, so too does our understanding require our minds, the object for our minds to focus upon, and the good, which is the illuminator of those objects, our minds to focus upon.
Okay, that is really deep and thoughtful. Thank you, Plato. So anyways, now getting to the question our viewers have been waiting for. What do you believe is really real?
I believe that the realm of the forms is ultimate reality.
Well, thank you so much, Plato. We're going to take our first commercial break, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. My next guest is French philosopher Rene Descartes. Welcome, Rene. So, what is your main goal?
I am searching for something that will immune to doubt and will be 100% certain.
How would you go about achieving this goal?
I would use deductive argumentation.
And by that you mean?
I will move from the known principle and not yet known truths.
Can you give us an example of when you've used this in the past?
Well, I realized in my past that my senses have fooled me, and I have vowed not to trust any basis for the truths that have once fooled me. And that is when I began to seek the absolute truth of something. Something I think, even dreaming my own experiences, even doubted reason at certain time in my life.
What? Reason, you say? Why might you doubt reason?
Well, since God is not proven to be 100% true, then how do we know that everything he does is good, including reason? How do we know that God is not an evil deceiver?
An evil deceiver? This may come across as offensive to some of my viewers. Would you care to explain your view a little more?
Well, I'm not denying the presence or the existence of God, nor claiming for him to be 100% a deceiver, but I do know that I'm thinking about these assumptions and that I will find some truth.
Go on.
Well, since all I know to be true is that I am thinking, regardless of what I am thinking about, I am thinking, therefore I am a thinking thing. And a thinking thing, therefore I am a thinking being.
You think, therefore you are, you say?
Yes. I am certain that I exist, at least as a thinking thing, if nothing else. If I would cease to think, I would basically cease to exist, which is what led me to my first premise.
What is your first premise, Mr. Descartes?
Well, the first one is that I found the self-evident truth, which is, I think, therefore I am. because I used this method of radical doubt by doubting everything that was not 100% certain. I found out that the basis and foundations of true beliefs are by doing so.
Wow, very well. You mentioned that was your first premise. Do you have any more?
Well, since you brought that up, I do. My second premise is God exists as a perfect being and an all-good thing.
Didn't you just mention that God may actually be an evil deceiver? Why the change?
Well, I also mentioned before, I know that I am a thinking being, and that God is the reason behind my thinking. Since he is all-powerful, there is a relationship between what I think is real and reality itself. Therefore, an external world must exist.
Okay, viewers, now we're going to get into what is really real. Are our ideas the construction of reality regardless of their source?
Yes, because if you think those ideas, then they exist to you.
Are our ideas related to reality, even if they are not exact copies of their sources or causes?
Yes, they are. These are rough correspondence between what I think is really real and reality itself.
Now, Descartes, what the viewers have all been waiting for. To you, what is really real?
Well, that is simple. I think, therefore I am.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you tonight, Descartes. And now we're going to go to another commercial break. Welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is Captain of the Nebuchadnezzar, Morpheus. Welcome, Morpheus. So, first we want to begin by asking you some similar questions we asked our previous guests tonight. So, what is your main goal you're trying to accomplish?
Simple. My main goal is to destroy the agents of the Matrix and free the humans from the Matrix.
Wait. So, what do you mean by the Matrix? What is this?
Well, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world which humans are slaves of artificial intelligence. Humans are slaves within the Matrix. They provide energy and life to keep the Matrix running.
So, what is the purpose of destroying these agents and freeing humans from the Matrix?
Well, I want to destroy the agents because they are preventing humans from seeing that the Matrix isn't the true reality that they think it is. Humans don't realize that they are living in a virtual reality.
So, how do you plan on going about this?
Through the prophecy of the Oracle.
What do you mean by the prophecy of this oracle?
Well, I was told that I would find the one to destroy the Matrix. I believe that I have found that one.
And so who is this one?
I've been told that it's Neo. Neo would be the one.
So, Morpheus, do you think he is the one?
I know he's the one. I have been searching for him for so long, he has to be the one.
We now want to ask you some questions about the people in the Matrix. Do you believe that they have a self-identity?
No. Their whole identity is within the Matrix. They're controlled by computers. Whatever their identity is, has been programmed.
So you're saying the people in the Matrix don't have a choice in what they do?
That's correct. Everything is pre-programmed.
What are the necessary and sufficient criteria for humanhood that you think of that would be within the Matrix?
Again, my darling, there is no humanhood within the Matrix.
So what are the Matrixers lacking in their criteria for humanhood?
Free will.
Okay, so one last question before we conclude this interview. A question our viewers have been waiting for. To you, what is really real?
Anything that is outside of the Matrix, the desert of the real.
So what is this desert of the real?
The basic world that exists outside of the computer-generated reality, which is the Matrix.
Okay, so Morpheus, tell us, are we right now in the Matrix?
Well, you tell me. Is my coat black?
Morpheus.
Okay. Excuse me, Neo. Okay, can you sit down for a sec? Since we didn't finish our interview with Morpheus, maybe you could help the viewers get a better understanding. So we asked Morpheus the same question, but maybe we should ask you. What is your main goal and what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, I was blind to the Matrix, but now I want to seek and expose the truth to those in the Matrix.
So you and Morpheus share the same views on this?
Yes, we do. Morpheus is my mentor, and without him I would still be in the Matrix and blind to the truth.
So Morpheus told us earlier that he believes you are the one. Do you personally believe you are the one?
Well, I have always questioned things that a person in the Matrix would not. I always knew that something was wrong in the world, but I did not know exactly what it was.
When did you realize you were the one?
Well, the Oracle hints at the fact that I am the one, and Morpheus believes so much in me that Morpheus will put his own life on the line, and that it was said that I have to make a decision to either save his life or my own. So at the time, I did not believe I was the one. It was not until later that I truly believed I was.
Okay, Neo, so seeing that you lived in both the Matrix and the real world, do you think that our ideas are the construction of reality regardless of their sources?
Yeah, our ideas are the construction of reality because it took me until I was rescued out of the Matrix to realize that I was once realized to be true or not. That what I once realized wasn't true.
Okay, so you're saying that while in the Matrix you are unable to have true ideas, but once released from the Matrix you are?
That is correct, because all our ideas we have within the Matrix have been programmed to us. I learned through Morpheus that our ideas were not our own.
Was it hard for you to transition out of the Matrix?
At first it was hard to fathom because the world that I knew so well turned out to be a lie.
That would have been very hard to comprehend. So how do you feel now that you know the truth and it has been a while since you left the Matrix?
I feel more alive than ever and know that I have the true knowledge. I am more awake, not just physically, but also mentally.
Okay, Neo. So, one last question before we conclude this interview. A question our viewers have been waiting for. To you, what is really real?
Well, the really real to me is anything outside of the Matrix. When my decisions are my own and not generated by some computer-generated program.
Okay, Neo, thank you so much.
Yep, I gotta go.
Okay, it's been really real. Let's take our last commercial break, and we will be right back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is scientist Kevin Warwick, but per his request, we'll actually be interviewing one of his robots instead. Welcome, Mr. Robot. So why don't you start out by telling us what your main goal or concern is?
Oop, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess he's not turned on.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, well, nice to meet you as well. So let me re-ask you the question. So why don't you start out by telling us what your main goal or concern is?
Well, my main goal is that science will eventually create one world with one time by 2045.
Wow, that's pretty specific. So how do you plan on achieving such a goal?
Through artificial intelligence. I want to create intellectual superior robots and integrate them into society.
Well, how would you integrate them?
I don't want to just create robots to be the same as humans. I want to create them to outperform humans in all aspects of life.
Well, that might be kind of frightening to some of our viewers at home. Why would you create anything that outperforms a human being? They would be outperforming you as well, wouldn't they? And exactly what is wrong with us humans?
Well, yes, you are correct. They would be outperforming me as well. But the reason behind my viewpoint is because I actually believe that human beings are weak.
How are us humans weak, you say?
One of the biggest things humans means of communication. Humans have a slow mechanical technique that is called speech. Something else that I found weak in humans is that when humans reproduce, they reproduce other humans. But when robots reproduce robots, they produce robots that are far more intelligent than themselves. So the intelligence in the world will be progressing more and more with each new robot.
So, what have you done so far in your career to reach this goal of yours?
Well, I have done many experiences, including some on myself.
He seems like he...
I think I just have to recharge him. So
Okay, so
if you could
while
just
she
give us some time.
recharges him, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. Alright, we're back, everyone. Mr. Robot seems to be recharged.
I am
and
so sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll just get back to the interview. So can you talk a little bit more about some of these experiments that you performed on yourself?
Sure, I have done many experiences, including biohacking and neural implants.
What is this biohacking and neural implants that you mentioned?
Biohacking is a radio frequency identification device that was placed in my arm and hooked up to a computer. The computer can then match up with me and recognize me in order to do a task such as turning on a light when I enter the room. The neural transplant implant is when a 100-pin port was placed in my arm, and which allowed for both signal input and output connect to my central nervous system. I even was able to control a robotic hand in the UK when I was located in New York City.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So explain how you were able to do such a thing.
Well, with the port connected to my nervous system, my brain was directly, I am so sorry about that, directly connected to a computer, and the computer was connected to a network that was transmitted via internet. I consider myself to be a cyborg, part human and part machine.
Wow, we can certainly see that. So, okay, viewers, now we're going to get into what is really real. Given all these experiments to integrate robotic mechanics into human life, what would be meaningful communication to you?
Well, eventually, I would like to be able to have brain-to-brain communication that would eliminate poor language that a human may have. Meanwhile, I have conducted a few experiments on my wife and I that involve communicating impulses to each other.
Well, since you are trying to integrate robots into human life, are they going to be able to be held morally responsible?
Interesting that you bring this up. The morals, ethics, and values that a robot will be very different than humans. However, we have to remember that we create these robots, and robots are machines that we always can turn off. So we are not 100% sure that these robots will be held morally responsible. But if that point comes and they do not show signs of being held accountable, then we can and will switch them on.
Well, wait, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to create these robots to outperform human beings. So how will human beings be able to control and turn them off if they get out of hand?
Well, that is a good point. I guess we'll have to just wait and see.
Okay, so one last question before we conclude this interview. A question our viewers have been waiting for. To you, what is really real?
Well, by making the basic assumption that there is no God, my own conclusion is that there can be no absolute reality. There can be no absolute truth. Whether we be human, cyborg like myself, or robots, each individual brain draws its own conclusion and makes assumptions as to the reality it faces at an instant, dependent on the input it receives.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you tonight, Mr. Robot. And that is the last of our guests for today. I want to thank the viewers and for my guests for coming today. And we hope you can join us next week when we'll be interviewing a surprise guest that I'm sure you all will love. Thanks, everyone, and have a good day.